Hey everybody, it's Bob from ILikeToMakeStuff. Welcome to BrainPick. We have April Wilkerson here tonight. Say hi, April.
Hey everybody.
And go ahead and start putting your questions in. We got a couple in there, and I'd like to get some more going. Oh, there's some more starting. Great. I wanted to tell you before we get started with questions that we have a new episode of the Making It podcast that I do with David Picciuto and Jimmy DiResta, and that should be up this Friday. And then the audio version of this podcast, if you want to see it, will be up within the next week or so. So we'll go ahead and get started with some of the questions, and you guys just keep them coming on for April. So here's a good basic one to start with. What was your introduction to DIY? And I'm curious, just in a general sense, along with this question, just how you got started, why you got started. Give us a brief history of April.
Okay. I mean, the simplest answer is I didn't have the money to make the things that I wanted or needed around my house, and it was either I make them or I wait another year or two to buy them. And so I'm not really one for waiting, so I just decided to try my hand at making things. What it was is my husband was still a full-time college student, and so we were living off one income, and we had bought our house the previous year, and so we had been living in the house for a full year, and I had all these ideas on how I wanted to pretty it up and to make it more functional. And so as soon as I graduated college, I all of a sudden had free time on my hands, so I just thought, well, I'm going to go down and buy some cheap wood and borrow some tools and then just start making it. And so that's what I did. And the day that I went to Home Depot, I think it was kind of coincidental how it worked out, because there was this woman standing by this cart full of like cut off wood. It was 2x4 sheets, and I was walking by her, and she just said, "Hey, this is a really good deal here." And I said, "Well, what is that?" She says it's coal wood, and they're selling it for 50 cents a piece. Well, at the time, I didn't realize how much of a bear it was working with bowed or warped wood, and so I said, "Well, I'll take the whole cart." And so all of my very first projects were with 50-cent sheet pieces of wood, and they were all bowed and warped, and yeah, that was difficult, but I ended up being able to make the things that I wanted to make for cheap, though, and yeah, I mean, that's how I got started. Really, after I did my very first project, I was addicted. I got hooked, and I just haven't stopped.
Awesome. So on that, like, what was your progression of, like, looking at your shop and your videos, you have a fair amount of tools, like you have a lot of stuff. So what was your kind of process for getting those? Like, what order did you get things in? As you needed them, or?
Yeah, essentially, really what I started with was a jigsaw, a circular saw, and a framing square, of all things. But those were my essential tools. And then what I did is I decided right off the bat, this is something that I want to do, but it's not in the budget to buy things, more tools, more materials, anything like that. And so me and my husband came to the decision that I could make and sell something, and any money that I could generate from making and selling things, I would be able to put directly back into my hobby. And so I started making and selling growth chart rulers, and any little bit that I would make from that, I would go and pick a new project, and then if I needed a table saw for it, or whatever it was that I needed, a router, a sander, then that would be the next thing that I would purchase. So what I did is I started off with a very basic set, and then I just picked a project and used my money towards whatever I needed for that project.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common way, for people to get started, which is it's great. I'm glad it works for all of us.
Yeah.
We can do that. Okay, so let's see. There's one here that's not a question. It says, "I don't have a good internet connection. I just wanted to send this, and hopefully I'll be able to watch the whole show. I don't have a question. Just wanted to say thanks to April and Lynn. You guys have inspired my 8-year-old niece to be," it got cut off, but to be probably making something. So kudos to you, because you guys are inspiring girls. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
As a father with a young girl who I want to get in the shop, it's great to see you guys doing what you're doing. So.
Well, thanks. I think it's amazing that I never anticipated any of that as far as like inspiring women or inspiring children or inspiring anybody, frankly. And so to get emails from dads or from anybody just saying, hey, I used your guide, or I saw this project you did and I copied it, or you got my niece out in the shop with me, you got my daughter out in the shop with me. I just think it's really cool. It's something that I wasn't expecting, and so it makes the effect even that much cooler.
Yeah, and that's a motivating factor. I mean,
it is.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's very humbling, and at the same time, it's equally as cool. It's uplifting.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those things that makes me just, on occasion I'll get frustrated with what I'm doing, and then I get some random email from some person saying, hey, I'm actually doing something because I saw this thing that you did, and man, okay.
Yeah,
I want to get back out there and work, so that's awesome. So wondering what your background is, if you took shop in school, or if you're an engineer, etc. So yeah, I mean, like technical background, what do you have that led you to this?
Nothing. I don't have any. I never took shop. I didn't grow up working with tools. The most, my dad was one of those types that he could fix anything and he could make anything. And growing up, I wish I would have taken more opportunities to go off and like maybe shadow him around and hang out with him. But yeah, it just wasn't an interest to me growing up. But really what it was is my motivating factor to get into this was seeing improvement in my home. And then I got hooked, and now I just keep going with it. So I don't have any technical background. I just kind of figure it out as I go, and I still feel like I don't know anything compared to other people, even though I'm doing these projects.
I was curious, do you have a count about how many improvements you've made to your home through your videos?
I don't. But see, I was doing projects a full year before I got on YouTube. And so I think on my blog I have somewhere around 80 or 90 posts. So around there, because I pretty much stuck to the thing, or to the schedule of putting out a written tutorial for every project that I've done.
Right. So, has that changed since you've moved more into the video project build type things?
There's been a few that I've left off, like the scrap bin challenge. The projects that I did weren't my ideas. They were just something that I saw, like the baskets Lynn at Darwin Orver made, and so I didn't do a written tutorial just because they were already out there somewhere. Right. But yeah, the majority of the projects, like 99% of the projects, I have a written tutorial for.
Nice. I found that was something it was hard for me to keep that up. So that's awesome that you can keep that up.
It is very time consuming.
Yeah, I found that, like, from talking to a lot of creators. People, and I've found this in myself too, but people start with one idea about how they're going to make their content, but either a style or an amount of content or something like that, and then as they get into it, they start to adjust how they do it and how much they do and where they do it and things like that. Have you found a shift? I mean, obviously you're doing more videos than you've done before, but have you found like a big shift in how you make your content?
Yeah, huge. It was really interesting how this all came about, because whenever I originally got on like writing a written tutorial, the reason I did it is because it was very frustrating for me to have all this free time and have all this motivation to do projects, and there not be a guide out there somewhere for a newbie such as myself. I needed somebody to tell me the absolute beginning how to lay out your marks and how to set up a temporary fence, all of those basic things. And I couldn't find it anywhere, and it was just very frustrating. And so that's what led me into doing the written tutorial. Well, then I started building things that move, like my sliding barn door or my miter saw stand with the wings opening and collapsing. And I thought, well, it would be really cool if I could just shoot a short video so that I could show people what I'm making, and I would just tag that at the end of my blog post. Well, I didn't realize at that point that there was this big YouTube community of people putting out free woodworking content. I didn't know names like Jay Bates or Steve Ramsey or even Mark the Wood Whisperer, and that all of this was happening. And so as soon as I got on YouTube and I put out a few videos, it was actually John Hines. He contacted me saying, hey, I saw your miter saw stand and I'd like to feature it. Is that okay? I'm like, sure, go ahead. I didn't know who he was, And so whenever he did that, though, that opened up the world on who is this guy, and he had featured Jay the week before, so I got to explore Jay a little bit, and that's whenever I realized, oh, there's a little community here, and that's whenever I saw people were actually putting out build videos, and so that shifted me to okay, I need to explore doing this because this is a really great way to get information out to people.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I've said this to you before, but I've seen you move. I've been watching you since you moved from no build videos to doing these really, really well done build videos, and I remember you being apprehensive about it at first, but I'm really glad that you took the step and are now like doing that a lot because you're good at it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we got some more here. Oh, this is from Lynn. You were talking about her earlier.
Yeah.
Which video project, excuse me, / project, were you most surprised by people's reactions to, good or bad?
You know, I think the very beginning, when I think even before I was doing the build videos, I was really shocked at how supportive people were, and that was the time to where I was just like really, I mean, it just took me back. So I don't even. Yeah, it was just really shocking to me how generous and how nice and how supportive and how encouraging everybody was, especially in the beginning. And the one that's recalling in my mind right now is my glass waterfall. I spent a lot of time on it, and I was hoping that would go over well, but yeah, I just didn't really anticipate the amount of positive feedback that I got from that video, especially at that point in time.
Yeah. Have you had any projects that where you thought like this is a good one, I'm happy with this, and then the reaction has been, or maybe the other way, you had a certain feeling about a video, this project is this way, and the reaction was polar opposite to that?
You know, I've never, anytime I release a video, my initial feeling is they're probably going to tear me up for this, probably for this little thing or for this little thing. So I never really get my hopes up too much, because I'm always just, my initial instinct is just to go on the negative and just think maybe they're not going to like this. So whenever it comes back that they do like it and it's overwhelmingly positive, I'm like, yay, victory,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. I've found recently that it's really easy to get gun shy because certain things can make people attack so harshly.
So harshly and so quickly. And so it's a very judgmental world, especially putting yourself out there on the internet.
Yeah, it can be tough, and I wonder, maybe that's a discussion for another day, but I wonder if the viewers, understand the impact that a single negative comment or mean thing the weight that it has versus 1,000 positive comments. And I think people maybe don't realize how impactful everything they say is, both online and offline. But especially when we've spent the time to create something to try to make it as best as we can, put it out there for free, and then often those comments can be pretty damaging.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've said it once before in one of my videos, but it seems like people have just lost connection, that they're actually talking to another human whenever they get behind a keyboard. And I mean, some people just live on that, and some people definitely exploit it and take advantage of it. But yeah, I think the majority of people don't actually think how much we sit there and think on these negatives.
Yeah, and vice versa. That they may not realize how encouraging the positive stuff is.
Yeah.
Which is great. Keep them coming. Keep the positive stuff coming.
Yeah, we love positive.
Yeah.
Or even,
all right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, or even if it is negative, maybe just as long as it's constructive and not just somebody just going off at the mouth and being rude about something.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a fine line there, and I get a lot of constructive criticism, and I'm really open to that because I don't, claim to be an expert on anything in the world. And so anytime somebody gives me some constructive criticism, I'm all ears. But with that same information with the wrong tone can just, they can miss the point, even if they were trying to do good. So it's there's no formula for that, I guess, but it's a fine line between being helpful and being hurtful sometimes, but especially just YouTube comments in general. But all right, so let's see. Do either of you have a dream project to build? Do you have a dream project?
I don't really. My list of projects is enormous. I mean, I've started putting my list together before I was even able to start building things. So it's really difficult for me to put one over the other. David Picciuto once asked what our like ultimate build would be, and I said a massive like tree house, an adult tree house. And so ever since I said that, that's kind of stuck in my head. And I think one day I do want to build one of those like Peter Nelson, or I think his name is Peter Nelson, tree houses where they're just immaculate.
Awesome. Do you have a big tree, like a good tree for it?
No, I don't. I actually have two enormous 33-year-old trees in my front yard, but I can't have a tree house in my front yard in the suburbs.
You can.
Maybe. I'll think about it.
I've got a good friend who he's my age, and he loves tree houses, and has this giant tree in his backyard, and he has this whole plan for building this awesome tree house where he can like rent it out for the weekend to people,
Yeah.
And he loves them so much that he and his wife went to Iceland, and they went to stay in some of the glass tree houses. If you've never seen those, you need to check them. They're mirrored tree houses, and so from the outside looking up, it's mirrored the forest, so you don't actually see anything. And then from the inside, you're in a glass box, and you're looking out at the forest. They're amazing.
Wow.
Check that out if you like tree houses.
Okay. What is yours?
Dream project to build. I think building a shop, like a big, huge shop from the ground up, would be really awesome. And it's not something I'm not sure that I would ever actually be able to do that, have the space or the money or any of that stuff to do it. But I think that would be, being able to make it exactly like you want it, have a lot of space to not build it to the stuff you have, but build it bigger so you could grow into it. I think that would be awesome. But Steve Carmichael. Both. Have you ever regretted not shooting a video of a project, and do you feel like you need to video everything you make?
You want me to take it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I video everything I make. I started this adventure, if you want to call it, just by kind of saying I'm going to make a tutorial out there or a guide out there on how I do things, just so that it's out there for somebody to Google if they need it. And so, hasn't steered me wrong yet, so why not?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, where I think I said this on a podcast recently, like I don't get to be in the shop that much, and so I have to take advantage of everything I make to make a project out of it. Otherwise, I just wouldn't be able to make videos. So. Yeah,
but if you think about it, even the simplest project, somebody out there somewhere might be able to get some use out of it.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Maybe the idea though is maybe not put it on, like us being YouTubers, maybe it wouldn't be applicable to put it on our main channels, but maybe a separate channel, or there's different ways, or even maybe just put it on your website and not on YouTube. But yeah, I definitely think that if you're going to go through the effort of doing a project, why not film it? Why not document the steps and just throw it on the internet so that somebody could get some use out of it? Yeah, definitely. And as far as regretting things, the only things I regret not shooting are the stuff that I made. I've been making things my entire life, so I didn't start doing videos until a couple of years ago. So there's tons of stuff that I wish I had build video of, and people ask me about, like, oh, do you have a video of this? And nope, sorry. Yeah. So I regret not having those, but I couldn't do anything about it. So. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Nick Ferry. April, what's one that you have yet to make that you're most excited about to make in the future, other than the treehouse? Oh, like I said, my list is enormous. But I'm really disappointed. I had plans to build a shed for my backyard before winter came, and too many things, and I haven't got around to it. So that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to. I've already kind of got an idea of how I'm going to build it, and not only that, but it's going to be super functional, because like right now, the lawnmower, the weed eater, my axes, all of my yard supply is just being stored in the entryway of my shop, and I hate things being cluttered in my shop, even in the entryway. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a shed to move all that stuff into, and I think it'll be a really good build, a really fun experience. I think I'll be able to learn a lot from it.
Yeah, have you ever done any of that scale of building, construction?
Oh, no. Anything? No, the closest I've come to it is framing out my wall for my AC unit that I put in my shop. But that was the first time that I framed anything, so it'll be a bear. But I'm looking forward to it. Framing out the walls, I'll be able to learn how to roof, a little bit, and then you may maybe wire in electricity. So I think it'll be a good entry to those things.
Yeah, definitely. You'll find all sorts of stuff in a build like that that you didn't know you needed to know how to do. So which is great. This is from David Pacino. Both. Not to focus on the negative, but what's the most frustrating part about being a YouTube person, woodworker, maker? I'll take that and give you a break from talking.
Okay.
The most frustrating part for me is, I think what we kind of talked about before, the negative, purely negative feedback, the non-constructive stuff that, I've had a couple videos recently where people just didn't like the way that I did something. They thought it was a bad idea. They thought something I did was unsafe, and fair enough. But I think the way that those things are presented sometimes completely deflate the motivation you have to do this, to put out content, to spend the time. And it's a huge amount of time. It's possible that the audience doesn't have any idea how much time we actually put into these things. But so the frustrating part is the imbalance of how effective the negative stuff is versus how effective the positive feedback is. One negative, can equal 100 positives, which is tough. And that's not a fault of the audience, I don't think. But that's a frustrating thing for me, especially. What about you?
Really the most frustrating thing, the negative definitely is, but I've kind of gotten in the habit of just either deleting it, like if they're just not being constructive, if they're just plain being a jerk, or just like if they are giving me constructive criticism, I'll just read it, and it doesn't really affect me heavily. But really the most frustrating would be the time constraint. Working full-time and putting out a video full-time, I just want to spend all my time making projects and putting out videos now. And so having the time constraint of having to spend 9 or 10 hours a day at work, and then not always having to rush around and try to get things put together and put them out nicely to where they make sense. And yeah, I think that's the most frustrating thing for me right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting that'll probably get better and then get worse.
I was gonna say, do you think it will get better? I think you'll take away some things like work, but then you'll just replace them, because I already have tons of plans of things I want to learn and things I want to incorporate and things I want to try. So.
Yeah, I think if you're the type of person, and I am, if you're the type of person that has a huge list of things that you want to learn, things that you haven't gotten to yet, I think that condition of always being too busy for the stuff you want to do will always be the condition. Yeah, so you kind of have to embrace it, but.
Well, and I think it might be a little different, because right now, all of the things, if I was only busy with the things that are kind of like surrounding projects and YouTube and like learning SketchUp or learning how to weld, that's not a job, that's not work, that's all fun and play. So even though my time might be just as busy, I have a different feel towards it. I'm not being stressed out by it.
Yeah, absolutely. And your interest in it, your interest in what you're spending your time on would be very different, which would be, make it more productive and all that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a good one for you. With being relatively new to YouTube in the past year, I'm curious how you've gone about developing a fan base. I'm loving watching you fix up your house. What are your thoughts on developing your fan base?
I don't know. That's really difficult. My number one answer would be it's kind of easy for me to catch people's attentions because I'm a female in a male-dominated hobby. Putting out projects that are kind of more home improvement or like decorative might also be something that's eye-catching. Who doesn't like fixing up their house on a budget? Also, I use very readily available materials, and I don't have, even though I do have a shop full of tools, I don't have an enormous amount of tools, and so maybe that might also appeal to people. But really, I don't have any solid information to pass along on. I don't have like a secret. I just kind of put out consistent videos, or I try to put out consistent videos.
Yeah, I've gotten, not to turn that on me, it was a question for you, but I've gotten a lot of questions about my growth, my channel growth.
Mm-hmm.
and people are asking, how did I do it, or what's the secret? And honestly, if I knew, I would write a book. And
Yeah.
but I think a huge part of it, and for the guys asking, I think a huge part of it is being involved, being engaged in. It's a community, right? Whether you're an audience member or a creator, it's a community, and to get anything out of it and to be a part of the community, you have to be engaged, and you have to get in there and interact, And so I think even if you have a channel that has no subscribers, the fact that you can go in and interact with other people on other people's videos and other people's channels just raises your interaction to the community, and people start to go, hey, wow, this guy's around a lot. This guy's interesting. He has good things to say, or this girl, I think being involved, is a huge part of any type of community, but especially YouTube in general, and I think it's a good place to start, in my opinion. Let's see, another one about channels. I'm planning on starting a woodworking channel. Do you have any tips? Also, I noticed you guys all seem to participate in collaborative things like birdhouse challenges. How do you know when those things are happening? Is there a forum or something? So I guess that's a couple of questions. Starting a channel. Do you have any tips for someone just getting started?
There's a few directions to go with tips. I would say at least give it a try. I think Jay put out some good information on his BrainPick as far as don't spend a lot of money on it, buying a lot of fancy equipment right off the bat. I would just start off, like, if you have a camera, using that, or if you don't, then using your iPhone. Use free editing software and just give it a try to see, is it even something that you have time for? Is it something that you enjoy? And then, going from that point forward, I would make sure that whatever, if you start a channel, I would make sure that you're doing something that you enjoy, or it's going to turn into too much work and take all of the fun out of not only being on YouTube, but also the hobby itself, which I think is really important to retain, or you're just going to end up killing something you love, Yeah,
I think that's a good point, and being authentic about what you're doing, I think, is really important too. If you think things are popular, if you think birdhouses, just because the word is there, if you think birdhouses are popular, but you don't really care about birdhouses, but you make a bunch of birdhouse videos, that's not very authentic, and it will probably come across in your videos. But if you really love making baseball bats, and you make videos about making baseball bats, that's going to come through, and people are going to be, engaged. They're going to see that you care about what you're doing, the specific thing that you're doing, not how you're doing it, not when you're doing it, any of that stuff. They're going to see that you care about the thing that you're doing, and they're going to be more interested. So I think maybe that would be a tip, is to don't just be so broad when you're starting a channel that, like, I'm going to do woodworking, or I'm going to do home improvement or something, unless that's the thing that you want to do. But if you care about a certain thing, start with that certain thing, because that'll, kind of like you said, it'll at least give you a launching point. That you may find that that's not really the thing you want to do, or you want to do it differently or something. But
yeah, and there's nothing to say that you can't tweak and peak it along the way, and like what you said, shift, and just kind of, you have to, in my opinion, everything about doing YouTube and making videos is all about a balance between what makes you happy, what makes your audience happy, and how much time you spend on things. Everything is about playing with a balance, but you can't play with a balance until you get started. So I say, if you're interested in starting a channel, jump in.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as the second part of the question about how people know about those challenges and things, I think that's also a lot of the engagement. I think a lot of the people that do, I don't personally do any of the challenge builds. My schedule just doesn't allow for it. But I think a lot of those people are just interact with each other in Google and on Facebook, and that's how they found out about those things. They're just a part of the community. That stuff's out there. It's not like secret or anything. Usually.
Yeah, you just have to watch the other channels to see who's hosting it, and it's all a community.
So let's move on here. What's your advice to keeping an organized wood shop? What tools do you think are required for a shop? Two good questions. So the first one about organization. You do a really good job of keeping your stuff organized. Do you have any approaches that you want to share?
I I don't like working in a messy shop. I know that I have quite a bit of space, especially compared to other people, but I still find that once it gets dirty, I have a hard time moving around, and I do lack things that I need to make it more functional, like an assembly table. I mean, I don't know if y'all noticed, but I use my saw stop a lot, my table saw, and so what I like to do is clean my shop and just make sure that, like, after a big project, tools are everywhere, there's scrap wood everywhere. So I like to go through and just start from a clean slate and just make sure that everything is back in its place. And I think to initialize that, you have to have a place for things to go. And so I spent quite a bit of time whenever I took over that shop organizing it and making cubbies and making spots for things to go. That way, whenever I do clean it, I can put it away, and then I have space to move around. Also, for organization purposes, I think putting things on casters so that they're mobile has been wonderful in my circumstance. Oh, and if you throw a coat of paint on it, I think that helps with organizing. No, I'm just joking.
Well, it can hide things.
It makes things look more uniformed.
Yeah. Okay, here's one that may pit us against each other, but I'm curious of your answer. I'm just kidding, I won't pit us against. For April, have you seen Bob's video titled "How to Make a Not Rustic Bench from Reclaimed Pallets"? And do you agree with Bob? Is it not rustic, or is Bob kidding himself? Feel free to say whatever you want. You won't hurt my feelings.
Are you just to make sure, this is the bench where you took and you just made the random pattern on top?
Yeah.
And what was your stance on it not being rustic?
Well, I was comparing it to the previous one I did. The first one I did was I ripped pallets apart and didn't sand them, didn't do anything to them, and they were very rough. And then when I made the second one, it was a patterned top, and everything was planed and sanded and had poly on it and stuff like that. So that was my point, the difference between the two. But I think some people didn't think that it was not rustic.
Okay. I only saw the first one, and I didn't catch the second one. But I think I don't know. I guess it's the definition of rustic. A lot of people just say if it has pallet wood in it, then it's rustic. But I tend to agree that if you sanded it down and took out the kind of imperfections and put a nice gloss poly on it, I don't know. I don't know if it would be rustic or not. But then again, if you have a bunch of varying type of pallet woods in there and it's not all the same, it could still get a rustic distressed look. I don't know. There's kind of different types of rustic.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of those words that's just really loaded with where you come from and what you've seen.
People consider this because it's a barn door. They say, well, that's rustic and it fits into a rustic environment, but it's not distressed and it's not old wood. It's very new wood with a coat of paint on it. But still, people have titled that rustic, and I wouldn't consider it rustic. But so yeah, it's a very broad term, I guess. Yeah.
And that's one of those things that people are doing tons of different palette projects of all different types, all different quality, and they do a totally different amount of work to the wood. I mean, different people do, and that's probably not the best term for people to gather around all those different types of projects, but it's just kind of the way people have worded it. So anyway, let's see. I just lost a bunch. Bob, you said there's a lot of things you'd love to record, but you didn't. What about making a project review with all of that? I could, but that stuff's kind of long gone, and like April, my list is just, growing forever, faster than I can get through them. So, let's see. April, I've been watching your vids for like 3 months, and I've always had this question. What does your husband think about you being the one that does the work at home? I guess the home improvement type stuff.
Yeah. He thinks it's great. I mean, of course, the more projects that I do, the fewer he has to do, right?
You guys get to do some stuff together. Do you work on some projects together?
No, not yet. But that is a few different reasons. Let me answer his question, and then I'll just hop over to yours if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of important to me to address this, just because I know that it's probably on a lot of people's minds, And it's really important to me that people that understand. I want people to understand our situation. And so my husband, even though he is very capable of doing everything that I have done up to this point, he doesn't have any interest in doing home improvement or woodworking projects. But like I said, he is very capable. He is very much the type that knows a lot about a lot, but he's also always been willing to share information with anybody wanting to learn, and that includes me, which might seem like a pretty common thing, but I don't think it is. I think that it's pretty rare, his take on it, because over the 8+ years that we've been together, I've been interested and asked him to teach me many things that society views as kind of man hobbies or man activities, such as like riding a motorcycle or chopping wood or using power tools, things like this. And he's never once hesitated teaching me anything that he's able to. And so, I guess to summarize that, he supports me in anything that I want to pick up and learn. And like I said, he is able to do anything that I've been doing up to this point. But since I have a passion about it and enjoy it, he's very much like, okay, you got it. Instead of being intimidated and kind of emasculated by it, he just sits back and grins and says, that's my girl,
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I think that would happen more. I think a lot more women would be in a place of like, I can do this by myself fully if given the chance. And I think it's a shame that a lot of times women just don't get the chance. And I can speak from my own experience. My wife would love to be in the shop making things with me. We've done a few things together, and not a whole lot. But right now, our children are so young that we decided a long time ago that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom, and part of that means that you just don't get to do a lot of the other things you want to do. Now, I'm a very involved father. Like I'm an active part of our parenting. So it's not like she's doing all the work or anything. But there's a time in our life right now that she cannot be involved as much as she would like to be in this. But I think in a few years, when our kids are a little more self-sufficient, I think she will have the opportunity, I hope she'll have the opportunity to be able to do projects on her own and to be able to take over some of the stuff that she wants that I can't get to, or whatever, that she'll have the freedom to be able to do that. And I hope that women and girls, young girls, are not stifled from having the opportunity. I don't know how to get around that, but I think it's a shame.
There's a few factors, in my opinion, on what could be holding more women back. But that's probably another topic. But yeah, I hope that they're not stifled either. But I can see, judging from even my friends' comments, they're not being mean, but it's just sometimes it's very clear that the man is the head of the household, and there's just duties or responsibilities that are portrayed by society as these are men's work and this is women's work. And even though the society is moving towards those lines being blurred a little bit more, we're not completely there yet to where if I'm out in the yard chopping wood and somebody's friend shows up, they're still going to give my husband a hard time. They don't view it as how proud he is of me that his woman can swing an axe. You know what I mean? And but yeah, he's very supportive of it. His opinion is, I'm not going to let this guy, joking with me, make me tell my wife, well, you can't do that because it makes me look bad. And so, yeah, he's very supportive and very encouraging with anything I want to pick up, and that includes doing projects and being on YouTube.
That's awesome. Good for him. Good for you.
Yeah, good for him. I'm lucky.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. What tool or tools do you think has been the most beneficial or game-changing in your making? What tool do you hope to add next? A lot of these are double questions.
Yeah, lots of double questions.
Yeah. So what's been a game-changing tool for you?
My table saw. Moving up and upgrading to an actual nice table saw. I started off with just a Craftsman aluminum, and it vibrated a lot. It was very intimidating. I still used it, but it was very intimidating, and I felt like I was limited on how much. I would actually try to work around it a little bit so I wouldn't have to use the table saw. And so whenever I upgraded, I mean, it's made a world of a difference.
Hmm.
What about
I
you?
think for me, maybe the bandsaw. It was one of those things that I didn't think I was like, that's what real people who know how to do what they're doing get, and I'm not that guy. So it was one of those things I just never, I don't know. And then I think watching Jimmy DiResta use it so much and like all the different ways he used it made me go like, wow, that would be, I could do this and I could do this and I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought it not really knowing what I was going to do with it, but it's one of those things where you have this tool available and then you start finding like, oh, I could use it for this and I could use it for this, and it would help me. All of a sudden I could resaw boards. Never been able to do that before. So I think it's a pretty versatile tool, and just having it available I think is pretty big. Now I have a nice one, a fairly big one, but I think you could still get a small like bench top and still be able to do stuff that you couldn't do easily with other saws. So
yeah, the bandsaw is definitely the one that I want next, just because of what you said. I think it's a very versatile tool, and I really there's so many things that I want to use it for already, and I don't even have it.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. I'll tell you that, definitely. So you said, what tool do you hope to add next? Is that the next purchase?
Yes, that is. Well, I purchased my DC already, my dust collector, and so I need to get that up and running. After all of my holiday project making is done, then I'm moving over to my DC, and so I still need to buy the piping for it and things like that. But then yeah, right after I spend my pennies on that, I'm buying me a bandsaw.
Nice, awesome. I don't know what is for me next. I have a hard time justifying buying more tools. I have a lot, so yeah. Probably a disc sander. I think that's kind of the next handy thing. Yeah, not too crazy, but oh, this guy just says, my wife has no interest in such things, and I think it would be awesome if she was. So kudos to April for jumping in and trying it and doing it well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. A little tip. I mean, I don't know if, you could. I find that with women, if you do decorative things or maybe very simple things, maybe it could strike their interest. Maybe not even traditional woodworking, but more of the DIYing style. There's tons of bloggers out there being started by women every single day because it's picking up in trend. So if you are interested in getting her out with you to do something, I think that if you could probably get her interested and get the bug going, it might one day escalate into using power tools or something like that. So you could always Google, just simple DIY project and do something like that together.
Yeah, I think finding something that you could work on together would be huge. I think that'd be really, really good. So Matt Cremona, hey Matt.
Hey,
both.
Matt.
What is something you would love to try, a technique or a project? So what's something you have not done that you want to try?
I don't know. I'm not very good at coming up with an answer off the top of my head. My shed build keeps popping into my head. I really think like framing and getting everything nice and level and installing a window and putting on a roof and doing the roofing and the electrical work, all of that stuff seems really appealing to me. So I'm really anxious to try all of those things.
Yeah. I think there's a ton of techniques that I would like to try. I can't really think of any specifically, but the problem I have with that is that it's hard for me to justify the learning curve time on something unless I have a specific use for it. Like if I have a project that needs X, then yes, I can learn how to do X for that project. But I can't just be like, hey, I want to learn how to do dovetails because I don't do anything that needs dovetails. So there's a lot of things that I would love to know how to do, but I need an excuse to actually spend that time personally. So I think this one, I think I probably know the answer for you and for me. Where do you get your inspiration for your projects? It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like most of yours are very like practical stuff around the house. Is that where most of your inspiration comes from?
Yeah, everything that I do, it's because I have a need or a want for it. I'm still working on things that I put on my list 2 years ago before I even started doing projects. And so there's just tons of things around the house that I would like to see done. And since now I'm building up my confidence on really, I don't feel like there's anything that I can't tackle or figure out along the way. Now I'm just making that list longer. So yeah, all of my projects are pretty much a need basis or a want basis. You know, occasionally I'll throw in things on my channel that I make for other people, but
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way in that most of my stuff is purpose-built. It's either for someone, a commission, or it's serving a need in our house, or it's. I found that I'm doing a lot more stuff recently that's productivity-based. So, like my dust collection system that I made that's kind of ridiculous, and you can control it with the keypad and stuff. That all is to make my time in the shop better and to make producing videos more, streamlined and so it's a productivity thing.
mm-hmm.
And so I'm finding that, and that goes into the purpose-built stuff. But I'm finding that not only is it serving a need in my house, I'm finding more things that are just about making time in the shop easier. And I think a lot of people probably have a lot of things like that they could do, quick projects that they could do to make their shops more usable, make them more organized, and they may not even know about it. They may not realize that, spending 30 minutes here will make the next 2 hours I do in the shop easier, or
well, and that's forever. As soon as you build something that, let's say, houses your screw boxes are always going to have that place. So even if it takes you 30 minutes, I mean, for the life of your shop, you're not going to have a spot to put those, and then just whatever else. Like, let's say you build a jig. Anytime you use that jig, you just help yourself out all those years ago that you built it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I definitely think they're important.
Let's see. We got about 15 more minutes. Don't want to keep you too long. Oh, here's one. April, do you ever plan or have any want for a CNC machine? I see them in shops more every day, and I'm curious if you think that it could bring certain projects to a new level for you.
Oh, definitely.
Matt Dressa.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, I would love to have a CNC machine. It's just a matter of prioritizing. Right now, I lack so many different things that I would like. I really need I need a few different things. So a CNC is kind of a luxury item in my eyes, so I'll probably move it to a little bit lower on the list than things like a bandsaw or like a planer or a mic, so my audio doesn't stink as much.
Yeah, I have a whole opinion about CNC machines, but yeah, I agree. It's probably not a priority for.
But I mean, you could. I mean, you get so creative with it and just make. I mean, I would love the opportunity that it would give me.
What do you think you would do with it? Have you thought about any ideas that you would use it for?
No, I'm kind of one of those gals that once I have something and I know that it's available to me, then my brain automatically starts putting that into the options whenever I'm thinking of a project. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would if it was in my shop, I would probably use it all the time. But since it's not in my shop, I have no idea.
Okay, here's another one from Nick. Paint, stain, spray it, brush it, or roll it. Oil-based or water-based? That's a lot of options.
That is. Okay, paint, stain. I mean, of course, anybody who watches my channel knows that I have a affinity towards paint. So, and typically I brush it. And the majority of the time I actually just use those really cheap chip brushes. They're like 98 cents or something like that. The only time that I bust out my Purdy brush is whenever I'm putting out something that I want to look really, really nice.
Yeah, I actually do as little finish paint as little as possible. I really dislike painting, so I don't do that unless I have to. Okay, here's a good one. Both. What build scares you, and when might you build it?
I'm getting a lot of feedback for some reason.
Huh.
Could you say that one more time?
Yeah, what build scares you, and when might you build it?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that. Pretty much all my projects scare me up until the point that it's done. I'm pretty intimidated by everything that I take on, just because I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea how I'm going to get this done. I mean, most of the time I start my projects with a good general idea, and especially the more projects I do, the better I'm getting at it. But yeah, most of the time the details is what scares me, because I'm a very visual person, and so I can't visualize the details whenever I'm planning it out at the beginning. And so I have to just work those out as I'm working through it. But, you know, it's kind of always worked out to where I just take it step by step, and things work out, and things get done the way that I want them to get done. So yeah, at this point, even though I'm intimidated by it, I just kind of be like, it's going to work out. I'm just going to jump in and start.
Yeah. As far as intimidation, too, there's another one here from Izzy, which I'm really interested in. When you got started with working with power tools, did you have any fears about using them? And if so, how did you overcome them? And how do you learn to use them safely? So it's kind of along the same lines, but how did you move into a comfort level there?
A comfort level, really with everything, is just kind of understanding what it is, what it can do, and how to prevent getting hurt from it. So like I have a tendency whenever I get intimidated by something to just start asking questions. So like with the table saw, I look at it and I'm like, okay, what can this do, and how does it do it, and then how do I prevent that? Like kickback. I hear that word and I'm like, okay, well, what is kickback? What is actually happening whenever the mechanism is throwing this piece of wood, and then how do you prevent that? And then you take that to all the different tools, and I found that the better that I understood the tool and how it operates and how you get into those little troubling situations, I feel comfortable and confident using them after that. And plus, of course, practice, you get more comfortable using them.
Yeah, and as your comfort level grows, you start to understand like where that line is of. You test things. You test like, what am I comfortable doing? What's a safe thing to do? What's by the book safe and what's actual safe?
Yeah.
And so you start to learn where that line is. I think, and I know Izzy's dealt with this in some of his videos. I think a lot of times that line for you as a person is different from that line as your audience. Like what that line is for the audience, and there can be a real disconnect between someone watching and what they think is safe and what their acceptable amount of risk is versus yours, and it's kind of a tough trade-off to figure out, like, to show what you think is safe or what you're comfortable with without putting somebody else in danger and putting somebody else in a place where they're like, oh wow, they're doing something crazy. Have you had anything like that in your videos? Any response that's someone says you're being unsafe, but to you're within your realm of safety? Oh
yeah, a lot of the times. People comment occasionally about my hair being in a ponytail and not in a knot. Sometimes on the miter, they'll comment about how small of pieces I'm cutting, and I think sometimes it's the camera angle makes it look worse than what it is. But yeah, I've had a few criticisms here and there, and and other times, there was one time on the miter where I set up a stop block, and I set the stop block up on the right, and I was holding the left piece, and somebody just made the comment, hey, in order to prevent kickback, you should actually be holding the piece that's in between the blade and the stop block, which of course makes sense. And then I was like, oh, well, I appreciate that tip, and so from now on, now I realized that I was making a mistake. So.
Yeah, I've had a lot of things like that particular situation where it just, nobody tells you that, and so you don't realize it until somebody points it out.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if you already have a video out that has that in there, people keep reminding you of it, whether you have learned it or not. All right, so we got time for a couple more here. Let's see. There's a lot of duplicates, and so I'm trying to find something that's particularly interesting. Do you have anything coming up soon that you want to, that you're doing that you're excited about, you want to tell anybody about, or any?
Nothing too exciting, just kind of normal stuff. I have some Christmas projects that I'm going to be putting out that I'm making people, not too many. I have a dog house, and yeah, just really nothing too exciting. I have a long list, so I just have to go through and pick it out.
Gotcha. All right, so both. What is this? Oh, they jump around a lot. What is the strategy for having family time but keeping up with projects and videos? Yeah, do you have a strategy for how you balance your? I think you and I are both extremely busy. Do you have a strategy for how you balance how much time you spend in and out of the shop?
I don't have. I try to get my projects done on the weekends. If I can get a project done on the weekend, then my week is a lot more relaxed, where I'm able to sit down and edit with my husband while he's maybe, watching television or something like that. But if I don't get a project done on the weekend, then my weeks are just slam busy, and of course I'm out in the shop where we're separated. So yeah, my strategy is trying to get it done on the weekend so that the week is kind of easy breezy with just editing and doing the blog posts, which can all be done wherever he's out. He has a shop of his own, and so a lot of times he's out in his shop working on his four-wheeler or vehicle, and so I can just take my laptop out there and do my editing while chatting with him while he's working on whatever he's working on.
Yeah, I think for me, the balance or the strategy is just planning. I think if I left it to not having a plan, I would end up either neglecting projects or neglecting my family. And so I make a real effort, and my wife is awesome about helping me with this, make an effort to plan when I'm going to do pretty much everything I do so that nothing gets left behind. So I think it's really important. If the more stuff you try to fit in, the harder it is going to be to just like let it happen. But if you can schedule things, even if it's like a rough schedule, I think you'll have a lot better luck. And like if I have something falls through and I don't get to work in the shop, I know that the next day I have 2 hours scheduled or whatever after work scheduled that I'm going to get to do that. So it's not as quite of a big deal. If the schedule changes, it works out all right. So, and I mean I've got a lot going on, so I have to be that specific. It sounds kind of nerdy when you say like I schedule my time with my family and stuff, but I have to be that specific. And I think a lot of people who are doing this and have families, they're really passionate about both of those things, or their job, whatever the other thing is. They're really passionate and they want to do both of those things, and they don't want to neglect one or the other. And I think some sort of scheduling or some sort of just way to make sure everything gets what it needs is the way to do it, from my opinion. April, how do you see your channel progressing over time, and do you have any goals for your channel?
Progressing. To be honest, I don't really know. If there's one thing that I've kind of picked up on the short time that I've been doing this, it's that there's not one way to be successful at it. And of course, success is a relative term, anyways. So really, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, putting out a video, trying to put out a video every week, and just see where it takes me. I would love to eventually turn it into a living, but maybe even starting a second channel, something that would. I think getting too far outside of like kind of woodworking, and I want to, like, I eventually want to get into welding and other trades. I don't think that I can put that on my main channel. So eventually I'd probably like to start a second channel, and I don't know, I just want to keep putting out tutorials on things that I'm learning and just keep passing along information.
Awesome. Okay, there's 2 more here that I want to get to.
Okay.
Both, what's the biggest mistake that you have learned and allowed you to grow in your making and YouTubing? So I don't know exactly how he means this, but I'm going to take it not from the in the shop time. What's the biggest mistake on YouTube or on the internet? What's the biggest thing you've done or learned from?
I mean, it sounds silly, but I've really learned that people have short attention spans, and so putting out long videos is kind of a mistake. But maybe that's bad because I mean, there's a market for everything. It's just how big or small that market is going to fluctuate, of course. But yeah, I've kind of found that putting out long videos is kind of more hurtful than anything. So I've learned from that to make my videos shorter, because I've learned that the attention span of people really only want to see about a 5 to 5.5 minute video.
Yeah, I think that is definitely an issue. I'm sitting here trying to think of an answer for myself, and it sounds terribly selfish when I say it, and I don't think I've made any huge mistakes that I classify as mistakes. I've done things wrong, but I think most of those things I just take them as like, oh, well, I should do it differently next time. I don't feel like anything's been, I think, a big mistake. I think detrimental to what I'm trying to do.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the community at large is really forgiving and really like encouraging overall. So even if something comes out wrong or comes out, like long in that case, there's still a huge amount of support there, and the things you just kind of learn from them and roll with it, I think. So there was one more that I wanted to go to do, and it was, if I can find it, it was, would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Wow. I guess I'll go with the horse-sized duck.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just imagining myself like jumping on the back and then just like choking them out.
Yeah.
That's totally unrealistic, but so is the question. So.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine how scary 100 duck-sized horses would be?
Exactly. You know, there's power in numbers, so I'll go with the one and take my chances.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much, April, for spending the time. I know you're busy, and I think everybody really appreciated you answering questions and spending the time. And guys, thanks for the questions.
Yes, thank you for the questions. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for the interest.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're not subscribed to April, go subscribe to her right now. And thanks for everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time. Oh, the next episode is 2 weeks instead of 3 weeks. 2 weeks from tonight on the 16th, I believe. And the guest is going to be Steve Ramsey. So we got Steve coming on to answer questions, and that should be a lot of fun. So, yeah, see you back in 2 weeks. Thanks, April. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.